Hi everyone, this is Grace, and today I'll be walking you through how I made this set for a dear friend's bachelorette. So let's get started. Now, the inspiration theme here is that the bachelorette was in the middle of the woods in a cabin, and the theme was celestial elements, that kind of thing. So we had to do celestial themed things. And she's not super traditional, so I wanted to do kind of a less traditional, less obvious bachelorette set. So that was the inspiration here. Also, in terms of the color scheme, one of her favorite colors at least is coral. So I decided to do this navy, coral, white, and gold situation, and I'm a fan. So this first cookie here is to actually represent both my friend and her fiance. They both happen to be Cancers, so this is the Cancer constellation, and I put it on a star shape because I don't know, it felt appropriate. Also, the Cancer constellation fits very easily into the corners of the stars, so yay. You will see in this set that I did a 2 consistency outline and flood for the entire set. I'm really into 2 consistencies these days. I wasn't always. If you've been around a minute, you know I have not always been all that into the 2. But a 2 consistency for me is I use a soft peak to outline and a thin flood or an extra thin flood to flood. If you don't know what I mean, go check out my video on consistencies. So that blue flood. I was going to say something about the blue coloring. I will in a hot minute. What I'm doing here is I'm creating this kind of constellation effect. So I just started with the swirl. I started with the scribe going in the same direction as the swirl, and that didn't agitate the icing enough for me. So now I'm going in the opposite direction. And I'm going to do that, I think, one more time. Yep. And after I did this, I was like, I still want a little more. So some people have said that it looks great, just leave it at this stage. But then I added these kind of wings to it. I don't know. I liked it. I felt like it could use a little more to fill the space. But if you don't like this, you can stop at the stage before this. And something I'm going to do next, I'm so excited about this, is to actually do a splatter with sterling pearl while the splatter is dry and the icing is wet. Y'all, this is brilliant. I learned this from Holly, the owner, co-owner of the Sugar Art. It's just so much easier than doing splatter wet, and it's amazing how this splatter, even the really thick bits, actually just dry into the icing. It's amazing. And this here is just because we're going all out here. It's a bachelorette, right? This is the Diamond Dust, their edible glitter in 10K gold. I link everything in the description. Also have a discount there, so go check that out. And here I'm just using my projector to make sure that I get the Cancer constellation correct. Don't want to mess that up because that's like a real thing, you know. Just using a white piping consistency here. Gonna turn that off so I can see easier, just to put these little markers for the stars. And so sidebar on the blue, I know a lot of people are gonna ask, how did you get that blue? Honestly, a lot of trial and error. I start with royal blue, I add a little bit of black, and I add a little bit of purple to it. That's how I get a deep royal blue. So yeah, try that out. I need to let the white dry, and now I'm using the Sugar Art. This is the same thing that I did the dry splatter, but now it is wet because I mixed the sterling pearl, this is the wedding gold, with the color solution. This is a great alternative if you don't have access to the high proof Everclear. I also use that too, but I like the color solution as an alternative. So that was the Cancer constellation. Next up, we are going to be doing the moon, because obviously this was a celestial theme, so we have to have a moon. All of these cutters, by the way, are from Brighton Cutters. They're all linked in the description. This moon is great. So, okay, we're doing a 2 consistency outline and flood here. I'm using a white because I'm kind of lazy. We're ultimately going to paint this in that edible gold. And if you want to do yourself a favor on the painting side of it, I would flood your cookie in a closer color to what metallic you're painting it. So if it's silver, I would paint it, or excuse me, I would flood it gray. In this case, being gold, I would have done a like golden yellow. And what that does is it just makes it so that you don't have to do two coats typically. You'll see when I finally paint this, I do two coats just because I want that super opaque coverage, and it's covering up white, which can be kind of challenging. But for this set, I was going for simple. I didn't make a lot of cookies for this set. I think 4 of each design. So if I had to do 2 coats, it was not a big deal. Now for this, we are doing the Crackle technique because what could be more perfect for the moon than the Crackle technique? I mean, right, y'all? So okay, focus, Grace. Number one question people always ask me is, how long do you wait to do the Crackle? There is, as with so many royal icing answers and questions, there is no one simple answer. I always set a timer for 10 minutes and then I check it from there after. Sometimes it's 10 minutes, sometimes it's 15, sometimes it's 20. If you're in a really dry, cold environment, it'll probably be closer to 10. If it's really humid, it will be maybe 15, maybe 20 even. In this case, I can tell that I waited too long. And the reason I can tell I waited too long is that it is so easy to crack the very edge of the icing, which is why I had to kind of bring in my other finger to kind of do some damage control when I would crack the edge of it, because I still want to have a nice clean edge to my icing. I'm using the small end of a fondant tool here. This was just a free gift that I got. I don't actually work with fondant, but you can very easily use the end of a paintbrush. That's what I used forever. Just make sure that it is a rounded end and not like a flat end. That'll help you out. Yeah, so you don't need this fancy tool like I'm using here. Now, here I am painting. This is the Sugar Art Sterling Pearl in Wedding Gold mixed with their color solution. Do yourselves a favor, people. This was another Grace being lazy moment where I was using this paintbrush. I regret using this particular paintbrush because it has so much like volume to the bristles at the end. So it took so much coloring to really paint enough, just because it was being soaked up by the brush, if that makes sense. So when you're painting, I would use something that is flat and not rounded like this. Yeah, I think I was just using this brush for something else, and I was just too lazy to get a different brush out. Also, it was a large surface, so I did kind of have a moment of like, what would be the best brush to paint such a large surface with? And I probably should have used a flat, because the thing is, if I had used a wider flat brush, that wouldn't have gotten enough detail work in the smaller spots. So whatever. I guess no brush is perfect is what I'm saying. But just keep in mind, if you're using like a really fluffy brush like that, that is just going to take up a lot of your product. So sidebar on the painting the metallics, I bought these little cups, little containers. I think they're actually makeup containers on Amazon, and I always mix my metallics in the same little pot every time. I label it, so I make sure I'm always doing wedding gold in the wedding gold, new silver in the new silver, yada, yada, yada. But that means you'll never waste any product because it'll dry up, and then you just add more color solution or Everclear back to it, and it revives it. And you're back to party land. Anyway, so this coral. How did I achieve this coral? I can't remember. Shoot. Can't remember if I started with pink or I started with orange. I honestly, wow, I'm drawing a complete blank. If you start with pink, you add a tiny bit of yellow at a time until you get to coral, or start with orange and add pink a little bit at a time. So that's how I ended up here. I rarely, almost never use a color straight out of a bottle. And even if I do, I'm always mixing a little bit of each color of a set to each other so that they marry all prettily together. So yeah, just a sidebar there. Now, this cookie here is large. I want to say it's like 4.5 inches, which is big. So I made sure that coral flood was a true thin, if not extra thin flood, because I knew I was going to be doing some wet on wet, and I wanted to make sure I had enough time, as much time as possible, to work with it. Especially, I'm not only doing wet on wet, but I'm manipulating it with a scribe, which means it takes even longer. And the design I'm doing here, I have to clean off my scribe after every pull, which means it takes even longer. So just keep that in mind when you're mixing your consistencies. This white, okay, two things. My mind is in so many different places. Okay, this scribe, I always have 3 scribes when I'm decorating. This is my thinnest scribe. I love this one for detail work. This is the PME scribe, PME. It is in my Amazon shop, and I should make a note to myself to make sure I link. I think the scribe is linked in my description, and also link those little, I don't know why, cup, bowl, container things for the sterling pearl. The white here is so beautifully popping because I add white food coloring to my white icing. Something I started doing over the last maybe year or two. I usually use the Sugar Art Master Elite in white, but you can also use a gel like AmeriColor makes a good bright white. It just makes the icing pop so much more. And some people use it because they swear by it to help prevent color bleed. So just a side note there. And see, look, even after I did all of that, I can still add these polka dots, and it's all just melting in because my icing is so dang thin that I have the time to keep working with it, and it's amazing. This, I could not do this when I was doing a 1 consistency outline in flood. No ma'am, no sir. Not happening. Okay, so I let that dry, and now I'm doing a splatter, a wet splatter. And if you've been around the block here, you know that I've never actually done it this way because I'm always too lazy to do it this way. Flicking it like that gets you a much finer splatter than when I just tap the brush. Obviously, though, if you're gonna splatter the brush like that, like flick it, use a glove because that gold stuff takes forever to get off. Y'all may be wondering, why didn't you just do the dry splatter? And that was because I didn't know I wanted the splatter until the base flood dried, and I was like, this needs a gold element to it to kind of help it tie together with the rest of the set. Here I'm doing the earth, wind, fire, air element symbols, just super simple also for the theme of the set. I actually was going to do a different drawing here that was like this really nice one line, single outline, whatever it's called, drawing of like a hand motioning up to a moon. But I tried it out on a spare acetate sheet and it just looked terrible. My consistency was too thin for that kind of detail line work like that, like detail one outline drawing. It just looked terrible. So I had to pivot, and I'm actually really happy with being able to include a different element of the theme of the set with the earth, wind, fire, air. Earth, wind, fire, air. Yes, I got all 4. So, sometimes you have to pivot mid making the set, which can be a little stressful, but it just comes with the territory, y'all. Just comes with the territory. So this here, I had to do another ode to, the union, the fiance. So this is just a very simple heart. This is probably my favorite. No, it is my favorite heart cutter. It's from Brighton Cutters. It's their charming heart. I've used it in so many different sets. The Pride set that I did, the Heart series set, because I just feel like it's the most versatile heart out there. It has a lot of surface area because it is kind of chubby, and then I like that it doesn't have a really sharp peak at the bottom. Yeah, I just love this heart. I have this heart in every single size she makes, and it's a lot of sizes. Keeping this simple again with the white, but we're going to tie in an element of the set by when this dries. We're going to do one of my favorite super easy, fast techniques to kind of really elevate a set, and that is to add, with a fan brush, just paint one fan stroke. In this case, it would be, okay, I did a couple of fan strokes, but this is just a really simple addition. I just love it. So we're finishing this off with, so it's K, hearts, S, because that is the first letter of the first name of my dear friend and her fiance. Just wanted a little nod to their union. Okay, focus, Grace. So this is a soft peak piping consistency for this lettering. This is what I would call, what is this called? What is this called? This is pressure piped lettering. Thank you, Grace. Find your brain. And this means that I'm varying the pressure on my bag. So downstrokes, I'm hugging the surface of the cookie and I'm doing a really thick stroke. And then my upstrokes are much thinner and I'm releasing pressure. So wow, friends, we have reached the end of the set. I really hope you enjoyed watching this. I hope you learned a thing or two. I hope you try something here. I know it's a little different. It's a bachelorette set, but love y'all. Have a sweet one.